Push record. You want to keep that on?
Yeah.
And I'll just.
Good. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right, cool. All right, everybody. Real quick, 30-minute training. Get everybody brain singing this evening. Wanted to do something different, kind of a different topic tonight. And it's something that selfishly is kind of near and dear to my heart right now, what I'm doing at work. So I kind of wanted to explore on how to better fulfill the role of an incident safety officer in EFR. And I think that all starts with all of us in the room and kind of trickles its way down. I think in general, we do a really good job, especially on big incidents. But sometimes we probably don't do the best job of getting a safety officer in place soon enough. So we're going to talk about it. Come on. All right, so just a little reminder, NFPA 1521, standard for department safety officers and professional qualifications. Big standard like all the other NFPA standards we follow, but basically what it says is if we have a big major incident, we need to have a safety officer. And he or she needs to be appointed, and they've got a very specific and coordinated role with the incident commander to be part of that general command staff. So, like I said, here in ISO is a designated at the time of the incident by the IC. The safety officer is part of that command staff. Now, during the day, now we got Drew. He's easy. We can go ahead and make Andrew our safety officer, and he slides in well into that role. He can come in. He's not attached to apparatus, and he can be operating in that white space. What we call, we'll talk about that in a little bit. However, it seems like a lot of our fires happen at night, in the wintertime. So how do we mitigate that as the incident commanders? More often us in the room are the incident commanders. How do we mitigate and how do we fill that role? So let's talk about it. Look familiar? Some familiar faces, isn't it? Developing a culture of safety, or a safety culture. I think in general, you guys agree, we do a fairly good job here at EFR. Often safety officers are heckled for being the bunker gear police, for being the ones that are yelling at people for not wearing gloves when they're rolling up hose, for not allowing people to operate after they go through 3 or 4 bottles of air. Really, where that starts with is developing a culture with, and honestly, we could even say with today's academy and moving forward and making sure that it is a culture of acceptance that we take very calculated risks and we have our own risk management as individual firefighters and as officers on the fire ground. A safety culture is one that where we recognize around our peers and we hold each other accountable. Things that we're doing, things that we're seeing that may not be, as we know, to be conducive to safe, and being able to speak up and change that behavior, and that it's okay, and that it doesn't come across that Captain Sermal is mean. I was telling you to wear my gloves when I'm rolling up hose, and yeah, maybe I am, but it's because on the big scheme of things, we're trying to prevent that firefighter from getting injured. We're trying to prevent that firefighter from potentially getting injured and not being able to run calls for a while, preventing that firefighter from getting injured and maybe changing the course of their life. So it's something that I think us in this room takes seriously, but I just want you to think about it on how can we continue to roll that downhill to our lieutenants and the rest of the firefighters on the department. So how does an ISO or an incident safety officer function in that role? How do they fit into that? So roles and responsibilities on an incident. As a safety officer, your biggest things you're going to do is you're going to identify and mitigate hazardous situations. Ensure safety briefings are made for all responders on incidents. Think about it. How good of a job do we do when all of our folks show up and they're showing up POV. We have people come with apparatus. Ask ourselves, as incident commanders and as officers, do we always give a good, thorough safety briefing, even if that's 10 seconds before we engage people? Or do we just say, hey, grab an SABA off 132 and go jump in with team 2? So think about that. If the incident commander, who's usually very task saturated, can't do that, who can we get to fulfill that role of a quick safety briefing? And it doesn't have to be belabored, but it could be major things. Hey, just so you know, on the Bravo side of the house, there's power lines that are on the ground. Hey, this is a basement fire, and the crew team 1 in there said there's hoarder conditions. It's horrendous. They barely got down into the basement. Things that could be catalysts to extreme negative events in the fire. That's when a safety officer can come in. However, his or her job is only as good as the information they're getting back or what they're seeing. So the biggest thing is how they do it is they review the incident action plan. So as a safety officer, if Chief Kronk's the incident commander and he's got a general perspective of how the fire is going to go, he's got team 1 operating on the 2nd floor for fire attack. He's got team 2 with them. They're doing primary search. And he's got team 3 on the outside throwing ladders and softening the building. Awesome. So as the safety officer, if I'm looking at that, all that makes sense with what I've seen, what the fire's doing, then I can look at Chief and say, hey, good, because Chief might have made those decisions and then got task saturated doing something else and hasn't had a chance to revisit or revise and see what he has assigned these tasks to do to get completed the way that he had anticipated. So that's when the safety officer can come in, and once again, they're operating out of that tactical view, and they're just looking at the entirety of the whole incident. I had to put a wildland picture there. So safety officer monitors the incident operation, advises the IC in all matters relating to operational safety, like we talked about. Hey, Chief, we've got crews on the Charlie side throwing ladders. We've got people going up and down. We have no one footing the ladders. That's probably something I don't need to be led with the incident commander with. Would you guys agree? That's something where I can step in as the safety officer and say, hey, you guys, if someone's up this ladder, please flip this ladder. So you've got that ability to intercede as operations. However, it's kind of like you get in, you correct actions, and then you step back and you're watching the whole incident. Ongoing of the hazardous environments, and this is a big one for us, coordination with multi-agency safety efforts. So if we have multi-agencies, as we know, that always, no matter what, brings us some difficulties, whether it's communications of the right channels, it's people showing up in the proper gear, understanding the capabilities, their apparatus and their people, all those little things that sometimes add up and are no big deal. They usually happen and go flawless in an incident for us. However, it's not picking on other agencies. It's just anticipating areas where someone could get hurt. We have responding multi-agency from another jurisdiction, and they're bringing a tender, and they've got a brand new person on it. And you can tell they're wide-eyed. They're not comfortable. You can tell they're driving the apparatus. That safety officer, it's his or her responsibility, in my eyes, to be able to just recognize that. And maybe you just touch base with them. Hey, would you like us to send a firefighter with you to go, fill up your tender? Because it looks like you're having a hard time backing by yourself or whatever the case might be. And I know hopefully they're not backing by themselves, but hope you guys can see, it's just reaching out to the multi-agencies that we're working with and realizing they're part of our incident and they're part of our responsibility as a safety officer to keep everyone safe and going home. So being assigned the safety officer, what does that mean? So the ISO looks at the scene in like that 10,000 foot view. And like I said, the best phrase I've ever heard is it's operating in that white space. You're the one who has the autonomy to really almost freelance in a sense, but you're walking around and you're checking out the whole incident. You're not watching to see exactly how firefighter XYZ is opening the nozzle, but you're making sure they're putting water in the right place and it makes sense for the incident. ISO should not get involved with task level assignments. Once again, the hands-on stuff. ISO should not be there helping force doors. ISO should not be there using a chainsaw on the end of a hose line. However, they can monitor those operations, especially high risk. Let's say we're putting someone on a roof. How often do we ever put anybody on the roof? Never, right? We just do it at training, and that's fine. If for some reason we were like, wow, this is it. This is where we need some vertical ventilation. This is it. That's a high risk event. I think a safety officer, having someone who can just watch that event is important to have. Lastly, there are times the ISO may be assigned as a division or group role. Now, this just comes from NFPA. I think for us in general, we have enough officers on scene who can fulfill those roles. However, if I make Captain Mills, if he has to be my division Charlie, I have 3 teams assigned to him, and I already made him the incident safety officer, but I need him in that role because he's probably the most senior and most capable officer to do that. That's all right. However, I need to probably relieve him of that responsibility or the safety officer responsibility as soon as possible. Do you guys agree? Otherwise, he's just going to get task frustrated, right? His span of control is going to get overwhelmed as well. But for the most part, it's kind of nice if you get assigned that safety officer. You are listening to the radio, you're watching the actions, you're reevaluating the IEP, and if we're doing a transitional tack on the 2nd floor and someone's putting a hose string through a window, I've got an expected outcome that I want to see, right? If the fire is continuing to get worse and that doesn't seem to recognize with our subsequent actions, that's where the safety officer can get on the radio and say, hey, what we're doing does not make sense. We're not having the effect that we're trying to achieve, for example. First big thing, once you get assigned as a safety officer, you do your own 360 walk around. What's awesome, we do a really good job of 360s. We don't do a fantastic job caring for everybody else who's the 360's been done. I'd say we do about 80% of the time. Would you guys agree? And so as a safety officer, it doesn't matter. You're going to do your own 360. You're going to look at your own hazards. You're going to look for utilities. You're going to look for power lines. You're going to look if the structure has a basement. You're going to look if we say the fire's on the 2nd floor on the Bravo Charlie corner. Does the fire really look like it's on the 2nd floor on the Bravo Charlie corner? Are there other hazards? Is there lawn ornaments? Are there things that are going to get in our way and hinder our operations or could hurt our people? Those are good things to identify and relate back to the incident commander. Once again, I'm a huge fan of confirming on what you're seeing as that safety officer matches up with the IEP. Ensure the IC has a plan for rehab. So this is as we cool down. And we do a good job with this, but this is where our medics are rock stars. Half the time, we don't even have to prompt them. They're already setting up. They do a fantastic job of even handling accountability for us on quick emerging fires, which is great. So as that safety officer, as things kind of start, that operational tempo starts changing, he or she really should I believe, get together with our medics and kind of come up with that rehab plan. What does that look like? How good of a job do we do once our folks are done fighting fires? We do a great job before we're taking everybody's vitals. And I kind of chuckle because we have to do it, right? How often do we take everybody's vitals before we send them home that night? After they've actually been stressed and been in multiple bottles and heat and smoke and gear. I think we could do better. I think we probably should do that before we send people home, right? Because have we been lucky that none of our people have gotten hurt? Potentially, but same goes on an incident. I think before we send people home in their POVs after they've been working their tails off in a structure fire, let's check their vitals. Let's get them some water. More than times than not, let's get them warm in our cases. But hey, if we get a summer fire suite, let's cool them off. Let's use that opportunity as that safety officer to coordinate with our awesome medics on scene and the IC, making sure we're sending our people home with a good mental and health state, so that we don't have people passing out on the way home because they're fatigued. Plan for safety issues that could and will arise on scene. That's just that 360 looking, anticipating, looking at it once again from above. And then here's some examples I gave. Water runoff. That's our huge one, right? We start making ice, we do a great job, and all of a sudden, like 30 minutes in our incident, we have this huge ice skating rink, and we have to march our people through it. And how lucky are we, I've dumped it. I don't know about you guys, but that's no fun in a pack. I've definitely turtled. So how can we, maybe the safety officer, how can we mitigate that? Maybe we move somewhere another way. Maybe we need to get us a hand truck in here. All those things that we typically do a good job of somebody thinking about an incident, but the IC can really task the safety officer to evaluate that. Because remember, he or she is not on the level, looking at everything else. Looking for those exhausted firefighters, building potential building collapse, big one, traffic hazards. And we're just talking about specifically kind of structured fires right now. Incident safety officer, big motor vehicle accidents, swift water rescue, wildland incidents, you name it. Anything that's big and emerging incident needs a safety officer. Anything that's high risk, low frequency for us is a safety officer. What are we doing? Oh, smoking. I really like that slide. Okay, so safety initiatives. There's, I don't know, you just said class, there's like 16 safety initiatives in the PA, something like that. There's 4 critical factors for the safety incident safety officer. So this is kind of taking NFSA because there's 16 of them, but if you really kind of squeeze it down, there's 4 of them, in my opinion, that are the most important for an incident safety officer. 1, be an advocate for leadership and personal responsibility on scene. You're really looking at everyone. You're having the incident commander's intent always in mind, not your own, and helping facilitate that and keeping the incident safe. Focus on risk management at all levels, the strategic, tactical, and planning, and empower the responders to stop unsafe practices. Once again, I don't think that you need to be bunkered your police. However, if you're assigned a safety officer, helmets. Yes, I don't care if you're on the outside of the building. You got a bunch of smoke blowing over you. Probably should be in there, right? Those little things that we often overlook. That's where the safety officer comes in. And the last one, learn from injuries, fatalities, and near misses. One of the unfortunate things of this role, and I think this is where Andrew will probably fall in, is if we were to ever have any sort of injuries, even if they're minor on a fire incident, how can we learn from those? How can we prevent them? How can we disseminate that amongst our firefighters? And how can we help prevent that from the future, right? And that's an awesome way that safety officer approaches it. Now we're looking at it in a way, since we don't have a designated safety officer who's on 24/7. However, if there was an incident and Chief Cronk made me assign me to be the incident safety officer, that's awesome. If something were to occur, I would work with Chief Cronk to make sure we gathered that information, that data, got it back. We have our own chain and follow as we come back. Where how do we disseminate that out to our folks to train and prevent it in the future? Okay, so putting this all into action. Identify a safety officer on scene as early as possible. In the most part, we do a good job with that. However, very often not, if you guys agree, we're just personnel limited, right? We're everybody who's there is like, we got to get stuff going. However, if we have EFR officers who are coming in maybe a little later into the scene, they're responding a little later in, we already have teams established, we have officers operating apparatus, whatever. This is a great spot to get a safety officer in place. He or she can also act as a somewhat of an advisor to the incident commander. However, I think you guys would agree that chief officers, captains, and lieutenants kind of in that order would be preferred, just because more times they get more senior people who got that slideshow experience usually as well, and also have that comfortability of being like, hey, stop, put your gloves on. Hey, don't do that. Hey, chief, actually, we do need a line to the Charlie side. Your fire attack on the alpha side is not being very effective. Whatever the case may be. What's cool, Captain Mills just got done doing his safety officer. Like I said, we've got Andrew, which is awesome. And then I would happily ever fill that role as well. So just some things to keep this kind of slideshow personnel we have. Identify to all in the scene that we have a safety officer established. Super important, right? Not only just for accountability, but it lets everybody else know why Captain Mills is not grabbing hose and why he's operating kind of continuing at 360, why he's standing back, and why they may kind of interject kind of in that. I don't want to call it freelancing, but it's kind of out of that normal chain. So, and I just gave an example. Command only units on the fireground 104 is now the incident safety officer. Okay, great. And then check in with them occasionally as a commander, and preferably place them on the scene where you cannot see. So this is where that typical of if Chief Cronk once again is the incident commander and he just happens to be kind of stationed on that Alpha Bravo corner and he can't see that Bravo Delta or Bravo Charlie corner, maybe that's a great spot to put that incident commander to be his additional eyes and kind of advisor and check in of what are you seeing? I'm seeing smoke going down. I'm seeing things cooling down. Is that what you're seeing on your side? Yeah, great. It just gives another set of eyes of someone who you can kind of trust in that role. Practice identifying the ISO on all call types. And like I said, this is where we on water rescues, extrications, wildland fires, high ground, implement as part of our IAP and our command staff. And I think for all of us, it'll become a little bit more second nature. I'll still put my caveat. I realize very often we're personnel limited, and someone could potentially operate as that safety officer in other roles, but we don't want to make Captain Bill's a safety officer on an extrication when really he's running the whole show. He's kind of got his head in the car a little bit. He's a little bit more making sure tools are working in the right way. We maybe need someone who can just take another 5-6 steps back, right? And can just kind of make sure we got everything, make sure we have traffic control, make sure that we have people placed in the right areas, make sure we're operating tools efficiently, make sure that we're staging things efficiently, all the things we look for, making sure the traffic's shut down. We called for it, but is it really shut down? All those little things that often when we get task saturated, we miss. And be a team and remind the incident commander that you need an ISO. The other big thing is this, and once again, I'd put something wildland in, you know that. You know, these guys, this last picture of right? They honestly perished with like 3 hours, they said. And there's a lot of reports, if you guys have ever read it, that a lot of them are like, hey, it just doesn't feel right. Like, why are we leaving our nice safe area up here in the black? I implore all of you as the leaders of this department, of the leaders of our firefighters, if your gut doesn't feel right about something, you're probably right. Say something. Even if you're in an area operating inside and you're pitch black and you think we're doing the good fight and we're getting after a fire, if it doesn't feel right, say something, because chances are you're probably right. So, any questions on that? Cool. I have 5 minutes. Yeah.
How long of a class is it? How many days?
2.
It's 2, it should be 3.
Yeah.
So if you can't, try to find a 3-day class. 2 days, it's like 16, 17 chapters, and it's a lot of information.
Yeah. FEMA is doing one virtually thanks to COVID. It's super hard to get into, but that may be something we might want to look at in the future with people that are interested. It's really good too, and you're interacting with people across the nation, which is cool because you got volunteer departments, you've got career departments, you've got combination departments, you got all these different perspectives. So I'm finishing this slideshow up the other night when I was at work, and where did I lose my thing? Oh, I can't get up there. See if I lost it. And I absolutely had to chuckle to myself. So just finished up the slide. I get a call, comes in as a commercial carrier fire in, this is in Cherry Hills. These are actually, this is a dirt road through Cherry Hills. These are the monster McMansions all around there. And most of them are, did I lose you?
I can't see it.
Oh.
Just before you push the button.
See if I can share again.
Sure.
And it comes in as a commercial carrier fire, like 6:30 at night. I thought was kind of weird for a residential area. I lost my Zoom. I got Scott. Oh, well, they might just, sorry guys, you might just have to miss it. Anyway, so commercial carrier fire. Hauling butt across town, and first engine gets on scene and says, this is the dump truck on fire. And I don't know if you guys can see here, these are power lines. So he had his bucket up and snagged some power lines, and then subsequently says, hey, the driver just jumped out and is letting us know that this is a CNG powered truck. And this is the end of the day. He's got his whole bed full of waste. And you see that fire, that flame on top? That's those CNG tanks off gassing. I didn't know they're on top. I actually learned a lot about these trucks.
I think you're like.
Well, it's not. And I kind of chuckled to myself, so I'll play it again because I was like, this is a safety officer's like dream, right? I've got power lines on the truck. I've got CNG tanks venting the way they're supposed to, and I've got not trying to knock it. I got a battalion chief who just comes on and says, "Put it all out." I'm like, no, we can let it burn, right? Just let it burn. It's like, this is like the Christmas tree. Like, this is what we train on, right? So long story short, we actually cooled off the truck. It didn't have a ton of gas left, so it vented for about 15 minutes. However, I'm standing down in a ditch because when I got there, it didn't look like that. There was a little flame in the back, and it was burning underneath. And once it vented those tanks, it popped. And I literally jumped into the ditch. I thought a bomb went off. So anyway, a great call for a safety officer. So if you got assigned a safety officer, what are some things you're thinking about on a call like this? You got an engine on the other side. First engine shows up, and we've got maybe another engine en route. What are some things you're thinking about? What are you concerned about with our people doing and not doing?
Power lines, of course.
Okay, so power lines. Thank goodness the driver self-extricated.
Escape routes.
Yeah, escape routes. I don't know if you can tell, this is all vegetation actually on both sides. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys know it's dry outside. So luckily there was no wind. The wind had died down. What other things? What are you worried about our personnel doing? Are you gonna make sure they're operating at a safe distance? Are you okay if they approach the truck? Is there anything what do you think about those power lines? We run into power lines all the time, right? What was that, Chief? Yeah, right. So we got to wait until whoever the utility, Excel, IRA shows up, right, and can verify. And was it about 3 years ago, we had that great training where they said 2 poles down. So making sure our apparatus are positioned in the right place, making sure that we are accounting for that potential exposure spread. What does that look like? Do we need to evacuate people just in case? All those things. Of course, he stopped in front of a driveway where the people saw this and it was loud, and they wanted to leave their house. They got really scared. So how do you mitigate them? All those little things that just happen. This is just one little example, but good. Probably a really good call to have a safety officer who can operate in that white space and just see what's going on. So I got 1 more minute. Okay. This is a call in Parker. This was a while ago. Comes in as a garage fire. This is on someone's helmet cam. Look like a garage fire? Yeah. The initial officer got on scene, super gung-ho, super new officer, doesn't conduct a 360, tells his crew to pull an attack line to the garage, and just kind of wants to put this thing out. So
In theory, that's the right call. But
right. But you guys can see we've got a little wind that's kind of blowing. We'll call from Charlie to Alpha. This is on a safety officer's helmet cam, and he says, hey, my first duty is what? I've got to do my own 360, right? So we're actually in the back, and all of a sudden see something that no one else has seen yet. I'd agree. I think you guys agree. We got fire in the garage, right? However, this would probably be good to put out relatively quick, and this would be put out relatively quick with the Instacart hose. You guys know that. However, no one had a clue that was back there. So as the safety officer, the whole reason of this isn't to knock the people that were there, is listen, trust what you're hearing, but always confirm yourself. Trust what you're hearing on the radio. Trust what Chief's getting back from the interior crews, but always confirm it for yourself. And if we do that, then we're kind of double whammying, making sure that we're keeping everyone safe. So
this is a dumb question. Does that safety officer, or in your case, are you taking tools? You're packing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so you're always ready to operate in that IDLH environment if you have to. Pack, I always bring a hand tool. Me personally, We're not lucky enough, but maybe if there was an extra apparatus on scene, have an extra thermal imager if it's not being used, for a gas monitor, because we're really good at putting out fires. We forget to sometimes clear it up. So when Jim shows up, like, hey, structure's clear on the inside, which is a very, we actually do a really good job with it. But all those little things that where everybody's high-fiving, we did a good job. And before we send other people in, you're that hey, let's send a crew to monitor the air real quick. Let's get some better ventilation. Our ventilation plan is not working. We got a lot of smoke on the first floor. So maybe you click in and look at it real quick. And we still have a lot of smoke. Let's come with a better ventilation plan. All those things. Good question. You're kind of ready to go in that operational if absolutely needed, but you're still operating in the space. It's tough. It's tough to be held accountable for it because you're kind of by yourself. So you can't just tell the chief, I'm going to go for it. And he just assumes you're somewhere on the fire ground. If you're going to go into your incident commander needs to know. If you're going to be staying on that Charlie side, incident commander needs to know. Okay. Cool. That's all I got. Hopefully that gave a different perspective, something new, something other than Wildland. Even though today was a sweet day for Wildland, even though we didn't get to go. I'll talk about it later. All right. Thanks.
Incident safety officer class from NFA